In 2016, the estate of a man named Ed Townsend filed a lawsuit against another, much more famous Ed Sheeran. Townsend's estate's case against the superstar pop singer was built around a very popular soul song from the early 1970s, a song called Let's Get It On. This was a song that Townsend had co-written with soul and Motown icon Marvin Gaye, and it had gone on to become a huge hit. Townsend's estate claimed that Sheeran had intentionally plagiarized this song for his 2014 smash hit Thinking Out Loud, citing the admittedly very similar chord progression. For comparison's sake, here's a little bit of Let's Get It On. And here's a snippet of Thinking Out Loud.
When your legs don't work like they used to before.
Beyond the court case itself, this lawsuit brings up some really deep, interesting, and important ethical topics. What's the difference between ripping off an idea and being inspired by an idea? Is any idea truly original, or is everything derivative? Should Ed Sheeran be in jail? What's up, guys? My name is Konner, and welcome to the Songwriter Sanctuary. Today, we're gonna tackle all of these weighty questions and even more, so let's get into it. So, how did this all start? Well, years before I learned about the Ed Sheeran court case, I read a book called Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. In this book, he suggests that for artists, instead of thinking about art and ideas in terms of being good or bad, they should think about them as being worth stealing or not worth stealing. He even quotes one of the greatest artists of the 20th century, David Bowie, who once said, "The only art I'll ever study is stuff I can steal from." He opens the book with this claim and spends the rest of it telling his audience the best ways to steal, who to steal from, and how to best repurpose stolen works. So I finished this book, and for a while, I was angry. I thought it was a tragic reduction of the creative process. It felt like Kleon was encouraging artists to be okay with lacking originality, and to blatantly and shamelessly plagiarize the people they claim to respect and support the most. But the more I let the thought linger and fester, the more I began to realize Austin Kleon had a point. The fact is, all art you create is the sum of your artistic influences, your cultural influences, and your biology. That's it. You can make the case that there's divine intervention in the creative process, but I'm not here to have a debate about theology. We'll leave that at the door. Let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that the physical domain is all we have to work with. What does that give us? Well, our biology. We have unique brains that have evolved in a specific way over billions of years, and every person has a different combination of genetic factors. Then we have the world around us. All sound, for example, is derivative because sound waves existed before the human condition. So a true cynic can make the case that any sound a human being makes is plagiarizing because sound waves already exist. You can see immediately why this is ridiculous. What's that Carl Sagan quote? "To make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe." So we have our biology, and we have the physical world around us. And the intersection of those two things gives us culture and history. That's basically what we as artists have to draw from. Excluding the divinity argument, that's it. However, we are all a unique mishmash of combinations of ideas and influences. Here's an example of how powerful this can be. So a chessboard has 6 unique pieces of each color and 64 squares. But according to the prolific American mathematician and engineer Claude Shannon, there are somewhere between 10 to the power of 111 and 10 to the power of 123 combinations of possible chess positions. For context on how insane those numbers are, there are an estimated 10 to the power of 80 atoms in the observable universe. That concept right there is the reason why, even though every artist is just a combination of their biology and their influences, every artist is unique and different. There's no shortage of brilliant, creative, and unique art out there because every artist is just shuffling their pre-existing stolen cards in completely different ways. Check this out, listen to this real quick. Does that remind you of a song? No? Well, it should. I stole that idea from a very famous song.
So it's gonna be forever.
I like Taylor Swift. I love her melodies. She's brilliant, and her melodic ideas put mine to shame. Please don't sue me, Taylor. I'm not a rich man. So, first of all, now that I've tampered with it, it's completely unrecognizable. Before I told you it was Taylor, would you have known that? Be honest. Now, because I've done this little exercise, because I've spent this time consciously integrating Taylor's melodic genius into my own vocabulary, when I write in the future, her influence will have worked its way into my own unique fabric as an artist. I'm not just a Taylor Swift knockoff. Instead, my subconscious artistic mind will blend her ideas with the tens and hundreds of thousands of ideas already swirling around up here. So let's take a left turn real quick and talk about plagiarism in writing, specifically academic writing. songwriting. Algorithmic plagiarism detectors have become unbelievably good. The written word is a singular linear medium, so it's much easier to generate algorithms and equations to determine whether somebody is directly cheating. And companies like Grammarly and Turnitin have worked very hard to become very good at this. Even so, there is an arbitrary element to it. We have to decide where that cutoff lies. Where is that line where if we step over it, we move from being influenced by something to directly plagiarizing or copying something? It's blurry and fuzzy, and we as human beings have to set that metric ourselves. So, what about music? In music, there are so many more dimensions than in academic writing, and some of them are supposed to be copied and reused. I'll just rattle off a ton of examples. There's melody, where you have the lick in jazz, which is a jazz melodic motif that has become so overused that it's now a meme in the jazz community. You have harmony in the chord progression. There's an entire genre built around a single chord progression. Have you ever heard of 12-bar blues? In any diatonic key, if you're only looking at major and minor triads, you have 6 options to work with. And with billions of songs out there, sometimes those cards are going to be shuffled in similar ways. If you're more curious about this, I've actually done a video on this exact topic, so feel free to check that out. You have rhythm. There's a very common rhythm in pop, rock, hip hop that is basically 2 dotted quarter notes followed by a single quarter note. The easiest way to count it out is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I call it the We Are Young chord progression, not because the band Fun invented it, but because it's a perfect example of it. They literally begin the song by playing that rhythm on a drum before the vocals come in. And here are just a bunch of other examples of songs that use this exact rhythmic idea.
It's going down. I'm yelling timber.
Then you have instrumentation. Think about how many bands have a singer, a guitarist, a bassist, and a drummer, and that's the whole band. You have lyrics and subject matter. Just as an example, how many millions, possibly billions of love songs have been written over the course of human history? You have arrangement and song form. Once again, this is something that has become so standardized in pop music that we actually have a name for it. We call it pop song form. And once again, I've made a video about this too. And there's so much more beyond that. There are so many axes along which we can repeat and copy ideas. So with all that being said, let's talk about Ed Sheeran. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, in 2016, the family of Ed Townsend, who co-wrote Let's Get It On with Marvin Gaye, sued Ed Sheeran for copyright infringement in his hit song Thinking Out Loud. Now once again, I'll play a little snippet of the 2 songs back to back.
Baby, my heart could still fall as hard at 23. I love
You gotta admit, those chord progressions are remarkably similar. Now, Ed Sheeran's defense was, well, I'll let him speak for himself.
And then there's, have I told you lately that I loved you? And then, people get ready, there's a train coming.
What I was saying is, like, yes, it's a chord sequence that you hear on successful songs, but if you say that a song in 1973 owns this, then what about all the songs that came before? We found songs like from like the 1700s that had similar melodic stuff, and then there was like huge songs in the 50s and huge songs in the 60s, and it's just, no one's saying that songs shouldn't be copyrighted, but you just can't copyright a chord sequence. You just can't.
After 7 years of deliberation, in 2023, Ed Sheeran won the court case. As, honestly, I think he rightfully should have. There are many similar cases and other examples of this type of thing in modern music history. Some people have suggested that Tom Petty wanted to sue the Red Hot Chili Peppers for the similarities between Mary Jane's Last Dance and Danny California. But Tom Petty understood the assignment. There's other examples of this conflict and tension with, once again, Marvin Gaye and this time Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams. Michael Jackson got sued for copyright infringement. Led Zeppelin ended up in court in 2016 for their most famous song, Stairway to Heaven. You even have examples of chord progressions becoming so notorious that they have names, such as this one, dubbed the creep chord progression, named after the famous Radiohead song.
This is the creep chord progression, the chord progression used in the song Creep by Radiohead.
Many examples of this chord progression being reused, but here's just one very popular modern example.
Hate to give the satisfaction asking how you're doing now.
So the painful reality is musical theft is subjective. There is no way to quantify it, so in any court case, the criteria for the decision is largely arbitrary. So what do we do with this information? Well, just ripping artists off is a losing game. I want to make it very clear that blatant, mindless plagiarism is bad. I don't condone it. To draw a very crass analogy, musical theft is like pornography. To quote Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. Even though it's hard to quantify, people have a bullshit meter. They will know if you're just continuously and blatantly ripping off other artists. People have little tolerance for direct plagiarism, and your ideas will never be perceived as original. Instead, use your creativity. Be tactful. I gave you the Taylor Swift example earlier. Here's a couple other ways to do this. What if I take a chord progression from a popular song, in this case, Old Town Road, but I changed the tempo and the time signature and where the chord changes happen. You know, earlier we talked about Olivia Rodrigo's song Vampire. This song is written about a guy whom she paints as borderline sociopathic, leeching off of people with more clout in an effort to boost his fame and profile.
How's the castle built of people you pretend to care about?
What if we took that same idea and flipped it on its head? What if we wrote a song from the perspective of the vampire? Somebody who, for personal reasons, feels so deeply like they need fame and fortune that they're willing to go to any lengths to get it.
Now I fight, all I've ever known is might makes right. I try to climb the social ladder and I do it out of spite, just to suppress the voice of my father so I can sleep at night.
In both of these cases, what do you think? Do you think I stole from these influences, or did I use them for inspiration? If you think I am just blatantly stealing, fine. I get it. You're entitled to that opinion. But ask yourself this. If you hadn't seen me go through the process, would you ever have known where those ideas came from? Once again, be honest about this. If the original artists heard my ideas just out in the world somewhere, do you think they would say, hey, that's my idea, he stole my idea? Your goal as an artist and as a songwriter is to make sure that is not the case. This might be a bold claim, but I genuinely think that the most creative artists are just the ones who mask their theft the best. And if that's too cynical for you, I'll put it this way. The best artists are the ones who blend their societal, cultural, artistic, and personal influences in the most unique ways, so that we get to see timeless, unchanging elements of the human condition from brand new vantage points. I've used the words steal and theft a lot in this video, mostly just to prove a point, but I don't want to come across as a cynic. I genuinely think that the blending of artistic influences and the subconscious expression of combinations of pre-existing ideas is the most beautiful thing in the world. You take what's already there, what's been there for all of human history. You take things that never change and you turn them into something brand new. And the possibilities are literally endless. Now get out there, steal some ideas, and go make something great. I'll see you in the next one.